Deputy Maureen O'Sullivan, please.
The issue I want to raise today is one that has been waiting resolution for a very, very long time. And with the current difficulties with Brexit and the implications for the Good Friday Agreement, there is a real fear that the issue, which is justice for the forgotten, the survivors and the families of those who were killed in the Dublin Monaghan bombings, may never see a resolution. I mean, I shouldn't have to raise this issue today, but the reality is that after many years, after much discussion here, in spite of the work of Justice for the Forgotten, and most significantly, in spite of the three Dáil motions, 2008, 2011 and 2016, there has been no resolution. Now, those motions were all about access to information, access for an independent international judicial figure to all the original documents. And the three motions were passed unanimously here, but they've all been ignored by the British government, they've all been ignored by the British Embassy, and I find that insulting to the Dáil. Now, there's been numerous PQs, and I refer to the most recent, which were to Deputy Brendan Smith and myself in early October. And we were told that this issue is of the utmost importance to the government, it's a commitment in the programme for government, and it's imperative to move ahead with the full implementation of the Stormont House Agreement. Now, that agreement allows for a historical investigations unit for troubles-related deaths in Northern Ireland, but there is no HIU for troubles-related deaths like in the Dublin Monaghan bombings in the Republic. Therefore, the victims here are being treated differently. Here, they will be treated like all crime, a matter for the Department of Justice, a matter for the Gardaí, whom we're told will follow up on new evidence. But how is that to inspire confidence for a resolution, because there has been no action on evidence that has been available since 1974. Within a few weeks of those bombings, the Gardaí had the who, the how, the time frame and the routes taken by the bombers. That investigation was wound down within a few months. We move on 20 years and we have Justice Barron and his inquiries and reports. Any action? Not a single conviction. But he did find Garda files and the evidence on the bomb debris missing. Further investigative journalism and books all suggest collusion. Justice Barron did write that the government of that day showed little interest in the Dublin Monaghan bombings, and that little interest did continue with many governments and also today. And through all of that, we have the failure of the British government to cooperate, which also continues today with their ignoring of the three Dáil motions, and they're hiding behind this facade of national security for over 40 years. So the questions, as you and the previous Taoiseach Enda Kenny made very strong public statements on child abuse by members of the clergy and religious institutions, is it not time to do the very same today for the survivors and for the victims' family on access to all original documents? And also, is it not time for the Garda Commissioner to apologise for Garda failures to date? Both of those, I think, could be an impetus for real action so that the forgotten, Justice for the Forgotten, her very aptly named, will see a resolution.
Thank you, Deputy O'Sullivan. Taoiseach.
Thanks very much, Deputy, for raising the important issue of the Dublin Monaghan bombings. And I know one of those bombings, of course, occurred in your own constituency. And I want to once again take this opportunity to extend my condolences to the survivors and, of course, the families of those affected, many of whom are still grieving. And many of whom still do not have the answers to the questions that they ask. And unfortunately, I'm not in a position to answer those questions either. There's only so much information that any of us have about these terrible events which occurred some decades ago. I don't have an up-to-date note on the issue in front of me, but what I'll try to do over the course of the week is to respond in some detail to the Deputy's questions in writing. I hadn't anticipated this being raised today. With regard to historical inquiries in general, it's something that we're very supportive of as a government. The fact that the institutions, both East-West and North-South and in Northern Ireland, are not functioning the way they should has meant that much of the progress on legacy issues that should have been happening has now ground to a halt. I had the opportunity to meet with the leader of the DUP last night, had a good discussion on many issues, including what could be done to have the institutions in Northern Ireland up and running again. She seemed very committed to that happening. I think that can happen once we've a bit more clarity around Brexit and what Brexit is going to look like. And I know that Taoiseach and I are very committed to doing everything we can once we have clarity around Brexit to act very quickly to reconvene the talks, subject to the agreement of the parties, of course, and try to have the Assembly Executive up and running again. have the North South institutions functioning again. And I think that will put us in a place where we can start to honour some of the commitments that have been made in relation to legacy issues.
Deputy O'Sullivan.
I think it's fair to say that the legacy issues have been the Cinderella of Brexit. But I think the point has to be made is that the victims and the survivors in this jurisdiction deserve the same respect and they deserve the same treatment as those who died in another jurisdiction in Northern Ireland. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt we'll probably pass another motion here today, and it will be passed unanimously. But there's equally no doubt that the British government would continue to ignore that, as would the British Embassy. So I think a public statement from you, in the way that you did on the child abuse, I think that could be very much welcome. You know, the 17th of May every year, there's a very dignified, a very respectful commemoration, and it's attended by various people. Former President attended, Taoiseach have attended, ministers, TDs, councillors, senators, and it's very good, and it's important that that commemoration happens. But it's almost like a ticking box, you know, ticking the box. We've attended a commemoration, that will do for this year, that's that done and dusted. But in the meantime, the survivors and the families are still waiting. So I hope when you do consider what I raised today, you would also consider meeting them as soon as you can. I know there's other issues with Brexit and broadband, etc., but these people are waiting a very, very long time, and they need to know that that time is coming to an end. Thank you,
Deputy O'Sullivan. Taoiseach.
I certainly would take the Deputy's comments on board and give them consideration. I'm not sure if there is a particular question there, but I'll certainly take into account what you said. I know there's been meetings with the families, with the Taoiseach already, and with the Minister for Justice, and we want to keep those lines open.